When you walk through the door after work, what do you need most? Connection or space? Welcome back to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. I'm Thomas.
I'm Julie.
And today we're going to be talking about attachment styles. This question actually came directly from one of our listeners, and so we thought we would just make a whole episode about it.
Yeah.
It turned out to be a discussion we had once the question came into us. We discussed it and had a long discussion about it, and we're like, well, might as well just record this. So here we are. But before we dive in, make sure that you follow us everywhere that's listed in the show notes below. Make sure that you follow us here on whatever podcast platform you're listening or watching on, so that you can get this information every week when it comes out. And if you have something that you'd like us to talk about on the podcast, if you have some advice you'd like or question, you can send us a DM on any of those social media channels, or you can comment here on some of the podcast platforms. You can leave us a comment and we'll receive those, and we can start looking into that to try to discuss those topics. So let's get back to today's episode, though, talking about the different attachment styles. What does that mean?
Well, it can happen anytime, but specifically with this question from a listener, we're going to be talking about the clash that happens like 15, 30 minutes after a spouse arrives home from work. Mm-hmm. And so in this scenario, maybe one person needs to decompress and be alone for a few minutes before connecting with their spouse, and the other person really needs that instant connection. You've been away from each other all day, and they're different, right? And I said this in other episodes, differences, and then they marry each other.
Yeah.
But these differences aren't bad. It's just how you handle them might be.
Yeah, totally. Let's first talk about what we think we would be in this situation. And so I think I know my answers. This is off notes.
I know. So my attachment style and yours attachment.
Yeah.
You go first.
Okay. How about on 3, we'll say our own attachment style.
Okay.
Or do you want to do opposite? Which way do you want to do?
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll do same. We'll do our own. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Decompress.
Connection.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and we married each other.
Most of the time, it's going to be opposite from each other. That's just how we're wired. You're naturally attracted to someone who balances you out in most scenarios. Yeah. Some marriages could have 2 people who just want to connect and chat it up for the whole night, and some marriages could be 2 people who are just like, all right, see ya. Like, I gave you a hug when I got home. Now I'll see you in the morning. Like,
it seems like a small topic to talk about, but it's a huge wedge that's kind of like a silent pushing spouses apart.
Because people don't talk about it.
They don't talk about it, and then days and weeks and months and years go by, and they don't realize what the problem is. They just feel disconnected from each other.
And that it's a relatively simple solution to kind of work through. Mm-hmm. And so we're gonna be kind of talking about that, but let's talk about like how we recharge differently first. Let's talk about those 2, attachment styles first, and the connection and decompression. Let's go through that.
Yeah, so we all recharge differently. So I would say some people regulate stress through connection. That's where I lean towards, because, like I said, in that scenario, I've been away from you all day. So that immediate embrace and conversation, affection, I've missed you. That emotional closeness, I'm looking forward to coming home and receiving.
Which, if I can jump in, if I remember correctly, from all like the personality tests we've taken with workplaces and things like that, those all say that you're really not that much of an outgoing type of person, right? I mean,
personality?
Your personality is not, but like that's how you recharge with me at home.
Yeah, I think people actually think I'm an extrovert, but you're right.
I do.
Compared to you, I am an extrovert, but on paper, I'm more of an introvert.
Yeah.
I just say I'm a social introvert,
Mm.
and so I'm more of like a one-on-one connection, not a big party group person, but true, one-on-one friendships and things like that. And so coming from a big group or even at work, it is different. Like, oh, I'm finally home with my person.
That makes sense.
And I can recharge. So I don't have to necessarily be alone, but that one-on-one deep connection would be more my personality style. And so I think that's where, even if I've been around a lot of people, I do want to connect with you right away. And then there's others who really stress in solitude.
Like
so
me.
You want to talk to that? How does that look for you? Because that's where, it can be like, what's wrong with you? What did I do? If you want to retreat from me. So we'll get into that later. But explain how you're decompressing is good for you.
Yeah, so I think there's a fine line here, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but, I think decompressing can be abused, like the term decompressing can be abused, like, oh, I just need to decompress, like, get away from everything and can't hide from the responsibilities at home. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. I have some thoughts on that, but we have to be careful not to get too, as we're decompressing, from my standpoint, we have to be careful not to disregard our responsibilities too. So, but I think, like, when I get home, and I remember early on in our marriage, actually, like, saying, like, you would greet me when I got home, and you'd give me this big greeting and this big hug, and I actually, like, at one point said, and this was early on, so I probably didn't have the communication skills that I have now, but I was like, yeah, I just don't like it when you, like, hang all over me when I get home. Now, 20 years in, I'm like, I love that. Like, I appreciate that, but we've had some of these discussions now to where it's like, okay, I need a little bit of time to just kind of get in and get acclimated to what's happening at home. And, that has looked different. That's come in different seasons with before kids, now that we have kids, when we had, just 2 kids, now that we've got 4 kids, and now there's a dog that's in the mix, and, he's more affectionate than anybody in the household. But I think that's kind of looked different, and my decompression has looked different over those periods of time. And it can look different for anybody in any marriage based on your job or what you're coming home from or anything like that. I mean, we even have a couple that we coached where the husband was like, hey, I'm out working all day and I like to come home and just relax. Like, I'm exhausted when I get home from work and I just need that time to relax. And my wife just wants to, like, talk and talk and talk, and it's, so there's the tension, there's the friction, right?
Well,
so when you want to decompress, we have to find that happy medium, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, because I think if you didn't know that about your spouse and they're just kind of pushing you away without having these check-ins and communication around it, then, an unhealthy marriage, that spouse on the other end is going to start thinking, like, why don't they care about me? Why are they pushing me away?
Yeah.
Why don't they want to talk to me? What's going on? And then, unhealthy narratives go on where now I know that about you and I don't hang all over you anymore.
And that same mindset doesn't happen the other direction. So the one who wants to decompress isn't sitting there like, why do they want to talk to me? Why do they want to go through all this with me? Like, they may get a little annoyed, but they're not having this inner dialogue in their head of, creating this negative thing. Whereas, the other way around, on the spouse who wants to connect a lot is going to be naturally having that inner dialogue if that discussion to kind of determine these ground rules isn't had. They're going to be asking those questions and thinking the worst and coming up with this story in their head of, do they even love me? And it's going to spiral out of control. So before you spiral, let's have a conversation about it. Let's
Yeah.
set the ground rules.
So the spouse who wants immediate connection, they might interpret the distance as rejection.
Yes.
Whereas the person that wants connection, the other spouse might feel that as pressure.
Decompression. You said the spouse that wants connection might feel that as pressure, but the one that wants to decompress might feel that as pressure.
Yes. So they're like, I just picture like the wrong ends of a magnet, you
Yeah.
know, like, so unpack that for us. What, if that's what's happening, how do we fix it?
Yeah, I think that there are two kind of questions that come up. I think healthy marriages need to learn to ask, what does my spouse need right now, rather than why aren't they meeting my need? Mm-hmm. And Philippians 2:4 says, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Mm-hmm. So in this situation, stepping outside of your own box and looking at what your spouse needs from both sides is where you're going to find that middle ground. When you can kind of step away and be like, okay, this is my spouse's personality. This is what they need. I can respect some of those things. Mm-hmm. Not saying that, to where you wouldn't respect it, but I can kind of concede on some of those things. Then you can find that middle ground. And so I think that you have to have this discussion. So from the perspective of someone who likes to decompress, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, decompression can't be abused. You can't come home and say, okay, I need to decompress for, 2 hours before I'm able to have a conversation with you. You can't say, and I think that, you can't really even say, I need to decompress by doom scrolling on my phone for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Or, playing video games for an hour, things like that. I think if there is something that's getting in the way of your spouse, that's your problem. That's abusing the decompression excuse, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean to call it an excuse because that's my personality type. But you have to step up in that scenario and realize, okay, my spouse needs something from me. They need connection from me. But I do need to decompress a little bit. So what's a fair reasoning? Maybe you are out working in the sun all day and you just want to take a shower and get clean. Cool. That I think is a fair boundary of like, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to give you a hug, say hi, get a quick, 1 minute, tell me about your day at work, or how was your day at work. Then let me go take a shower. That'll give me the time to kind of be alone, get relaxed, and then come out and I'll be ready. Mm-hmm. But if you're putting a thing or a device or some other object over your marriage, that's a big problem. Mm-hmm. I think that, you can say, hey, I just need to come home and grab a snack, give me 5 minutes in my room to eat the snack, and I'll be back down. Like, figure out your time frame. And we already said at the very beginning of this episode that first 15 to 30 minutes is where this typically happens.
Right.
So if you're the decompressed spouse and you need 15 minutes, you just tell them, hey, just give me 15 minutes. But you can't ignore them when you walk in the door.
Yeah. So
that's the problem.
So maybe it's a quick greeting, and then you're saying a lot of times here, whatever you and your spouse decide on, but then honor that.
Yes.
So don't say 15, I need 15 minutes. And if it's 16 minutes when they come back, don't hold it against them, but don't take advantage of an hour and a half later.
Yes.
That you come back. So what is that? Is it 15 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? 5 minutes? 30 minutes? We can't give you that answer, but respect the agreed upon time. And yes, but still we say always, hug and kiss, good morning, goodbye, hello, those. So don't just blow past your spouse to decompress.
Yeah.
So what's the quick greeting? What's the set amount of time? And then trust that your spouse intends to reconnect.
Yeah.
So don't just be coming up with these things. Just that's your now time to greet them again.
Yeah.
And have the conversation. But when this question came in, and we started talking about it and how we would respond to this, the first thing that we thought of, maybe that we've navigated in our own relationship, is we have found rhythms. And I think healthy marriages have established those rhythms. So they probably talked about it. They're probably doing these rhythms that you may not even realize. So this is a pain point in your marriage. Just establish those rhythms. So this could be a daily thing if your work schedule's consistent and you're like, every day I need this. But we realize that that's sometimes not always the case. Our schedule's different sometimes every day. But I guess what I'm getting to is it's not just the coming home from work that's been the pain point in our marriage. Sometimes it's after the kids have gone to bed.
Right.
Right? Like, if I'm being real, that's when we finally came home from work, did dinner, got the kids bathed in bed, and then we look at each other and we've had different expectations of how the rest of the night will go.
Right.
And that's what we've really had to talk about. And so is it a night that we're going to spend together? I mean, we spend every night together, but
Right.
like watching a movie or watching a show or discussing, or we have a talk time. Those are very different.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, yes, we'll decompress together by watching TV, or are we having a conversation and you gotta have energy for that? Or do we need alone time where it's allowed to, maybe you play video games and I read a book, or I watch a show, my shows, in our bedroom, or maybe it's a girls' night or guys' night out of the house. And what are those rhythms? But if you don't talk about even that, coming home from work or whatever your next, awkward moments, if you don't talk about it, then you just kind of do this awkward dance and frustration.
Tension builds. It just kind of lingers, and it will affect more than just this area. It will spread out and affect, your intimacy, because now you're not even connecting in the right way. Because let's be honest, even though we're trying not to say that one of these types is like better than the other or preferred over the other, the decompression style is gonna naturally be the one that kind of takes a little bit of a forefront here. Because if you're not talking about it, that one who needs to decompress is gonna be more grumpy if they don't get to. And if they do get to and it still hasn't been discussed and you haven't determined your rules around this yet, then it's going to be taken as distance. It's just going to then maintain this tension, and you're not really ever going to move forward in anything. And so I don't mean to say that that's the one that always needs to win or anything like that. But naturally, that's just going to be the one that happens. Because if that person doesn't want to talk, they're not going to talk. They're going to cold shoulder you if you haven't made these rules, and they're going to stonewall you, and then it's just going to build this tension because they're just not ready or able, even mentally, when they get home to be able to handle that. But that's where, if you are that decompressed person, you have to step up. You have to step outside your comfort zone. You have to have this initial conversation with your spouse to then be able to have your time and not disrespect your spouse by taking your time. And I think those are two different things. When you work on it together, you'll get to have that time. And your spouse who wants to connect will also get to have that time because you've decided together what those rules and boundaries are going to be. Versus taking your time, that takes it away from both of you. That ruins everything for both of you, and it's not fair at all. And so you have to create a rhythm that honors both spouses in this scenario, rather than just the decompression one kind of winning all the time. Or, I guess you could look at it the other way, and the spouse who wants to connect is just going to kind of keep pressuring that, which is really just going to keep pushing the other person away. The example you used about the magnets earlier is like the perfect visual in this scenario. If one's constantly chasing and chasing and chasing, you're never going to get there, because one's going to keep reserving and going more into that shell to kind of get away. you have to communicate about this on the front end and set those boundaries and rules. So let's talk about how we can help you with that.
Yeah, so if this resonates with you, the first practical tip we want to say that you do this week is, number one, talk about your transition needs. We'll call them transition because then it doesn't have to be, well, that doesn't apply to me with the work or the bedtime after the kids. What is it that's creating that silent friction or building walls? So ask your spouse, what helps you unwind after work? Or how much time do you need during this transition? Or what helps you feel loved when I first get home?
Yeah.
Some practical questions there. 2, create a specific plan. So instead of guessing, decide it together.
Yeah, who would have thought that we can't read each other's minds?
Yeah.
How many years do you think it took us into our marriage to figure that out?
I don't know. This really resonates with me. I was thinking about that, like I said, when the question came in, and like, how would we respond? Because we have good rhythms now, but I think it was closer to 7 years in.
Oh wow, you gotta have a what date of the year was it? You had that answer locked and loaded.
I think if someone asked me like, year 7 was our hardest year, and I think that has happened.
That's a whole different episode, y'all. Come back. We're gonna have to talk about
year
that one because maybe I blocked it out and don't remember. So I think that, again, like I was saying a few minutes ago, the decompression time is naturally going to be the one that takes the forefront, right? I think, one way you could go about this is maybe the first 15 minutes, the decompression happens, and maybe the next 15 minutes, again, with a little bit of grace. We're not saying, set a timer and start pounding on the bathroom door if your spouse is going to the bathroom, like, hey, ready to talk? Like, so I think, giving that little bit of grace, but also if you're decompressing, don't take advantage of it. So maybe decompression comes first. I think it kind of has to, because like I said earlier, if the decompression spouse is not ready to talk, if they're not mentally able to because of whatever their job is or whatever they're coming home from, they're not going to be able to give you that true connection time that you want. So I think that, again, we're not trying to say that one comes before the other, but I think in this, if you're just talking about times, that one really kind of does have to come first. And then the second 15 minutes might be connection. Now, you determine the times for yourselves.
Right.
But I also said earlier, if you're the decompression spouse, you can't just ignore your spouse when you walk in. You have to give them some type of connection at first. Like I said, my dog is the one who's really the most affectionate when anybody walks through the door. If I don't greet him, he's gonna be annoying until I do. And so giving your spouse that couple minutes of attention as soon as you walk in before your decompression time really starts, that lets them know that you'll be back. That lets them know they've been acknowledged. That lets them know they've been seen. Hey, we just talked about feeling seen in an episode recently. Go back and listen to that one. And so if your spouse feels seen right away, that's going to give them the knowledge that, okay, cool, we're good, everything's cool, I can wait a few minutes, and then we'll get to talk. And then, or maybe it's just having a longer conversation after dinner. Maybe you get 5 minutes as soon as they get home, take a break, and then a longer conversation when dinner's done or when the kids are in bed, kind of depending on what your family or household scenario looks like. And, more importantly, you have to keep your promises in this scenario. So whatever rules you make, adhere to those. Again, giving that little bit of grace. If you're going to do the 15-minute rule, adhere to that 15-minute rule. If 16 minutes happens, it is what it is, but don't make it 20, don't make it 30, or don't make it 16 every day.
Right.
That's starting to dwindle away at that trust. So be careful with that. Make sure you keep your promises so that these rules work for you and that this 15 to 30 minutes doesn't continue to grow tension in your relationship. Yeah. So, thanks for checking us out this week. Thanks for being here at this episode. We really appreciate you. And we want to just remind you, make sure you go follow us. All of those social media channels are down below in the description. And just to remind you that your engagement really goes farther than you think.
Yeah.
Your engagement in our content really goes farther than you think. And, we don't try to make this about us. We are obviously putting this out for free, but the more people that this can get to and can help would be great.
Yeah.
Because there could be someone out there that's looking for help. They could be in just a stuck place in their marriage and they don't really know where to go and search for it, and you sharing it or commenting is going to help these different platforms put it in front of them, and then they might start finding the help that they need. And I think we have two primary goals here at Marriage Puzzle. I think we have a goal to help make marriages better, whether they're going from bad to good or good to great, and we have a goal to help marriages start off on the right foot, help new marriages start off on the right foot. So if you're not married yet and you're starting to listen, we want to make sure that your marriage is getting off to a good start. And so, you may be in a spot in your marriage where you're like, I'm doing great. Well, share this out with someone so maybe a newlywed can see this and can get the help that they don't know they need yet, that they're going to need soon. So, like, comment, share, do all the things, push some buttons, get it out there.
And we want to know about you, specifically about this episode. So what is your attachment style? Comment, connect, or decompress?
Yeah, which one are you? Which team are you on? Team connect or team decompress? Let's figure out what that is. Let's see how many are out there. We'd love to see, and you can also comment your spouses too. Like, once you talk about this, like, if you don't both get the comment, one of you can comment for both. Let us know, because we'd like to know how many are actually out there that are the same style too, because that's odd to us because we don't have the same style. So we'd love to hear from you, and like we said earlier, feel free to send us a comment or a DM if there's something specific that you would like us to bring up and talk about on the podcast. So we'll see you back next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time.